Hey, sweetie, how's it
Hi,
going?
good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
So nice to see you. I was gonna wear a floral shirt as well, except that mine was white with black flowers, so it would have been great. Is it floral?
Mine, yeah, mine's got little white flowers on it. It's a little
Yeah,
black.
I should have worn that now. Damn it. We should have coordinated.
We should have coordinated.
Yes.
I like your
All
top.
right.
Where's that from?
Thank you. It's actually a crop top, and it comes with pajama bottoms because it's like working from home attire. So yeah, it's nice. Yeah, I've really invested in that.
Oh, why you
I'm like, I'm working from home. I need to have nice clothes for when I work from home.
like?
Little does anybody know that I work in my pajamas all day. So
We're all judging you, Marcella.
I know it's fine. It's fine. It's all good. I understand. So
So
yeah, so do you,
Textiles is here. Hi. Thanks for joining.
this
We're
thing
gonna
keeps going up.
we're gonna wait a couple minutes, see who else wants to hop on, and then we'll jump to it. But how was? Hmm?
Sorry, I'm just realizing like it keeps dimming, and I was like, oh, it's because it's not hooked up. So it's all good. It's all good.
I'm gonna plug my phone. Hold on. See if I can do stuff. Can I do it?
Tina's, you're gonna do that. Oh shoot, where is it? Oh darn it. I don't know where it goes. Like and I did it last week and I had no problems. And then this week I was like, oh, it's just easy. And of course this week I'm like, I don't know how to do anything, but that's okay.
That's okay. I got dressed up for you.
Thank you. That's so nice. It's got a little bow too.
Yeah, yeah.
I
It's all
love
for
it.
you. It's all for
I
you.
really like it. I really like it. That's
Thank you.
beautiful.
I feel pretty in it.
Good. No, but that's exciting. It's gonna be a nice talk, I think, today.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Some big things to cover. Any
Yes.
personal updates? Personal updates. Tell me something good.
Oh God, you always do this, and then I'm always like, Even when we're having like conversations on the phone, you're like, tell me something good. I'm like, apparently, elephants practice religion. I don't know if that's good. It's just really interesting. Um, like a biologist from I think the University of Chicago, but I could be wrong. Like studied like rituals that elephants would perform, and apparently, elephants are very aware of the moon cycles. So
Really?
yeah, so when it's like at a crescent or whatever, they do one thing, and if they have like at a quarter, they would like lift up like barks of like leaves and stuff and like wave them. So it was things that he noticed, like patterns that they kept repeating, and so it like leads to prove that like there is some sort of like, I guess, like theism that elephants practice. But I think it's fascinating. So like obviously it's not like Christian religion, but it's still really cool that they have these like held beliefs or whatever. So I'm gonna look more into that, because when I read it, I was like, I don't believe this, but then I was like, you never know. So, but yes, apparently that is a true fact.
I have heard something similar about, I
Oh.
believe it was gorillas.
Yeah, see, but that doesn't surprise me as much because of like their like closeness to us, their proximity. Sorry.
Mhm. Yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah, you tell me something good if you have anything good to share.
well, it was my birthday yesterday.
Yes, I knew that. Yes, yes. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So that's I suppose that's a good thing. And it was a really good day.
Good.
And my 12-year-old was really nice to me. Thank you.
With the
I just
full
got a happy
day.
birthday wish. Yeah, he was so nice to me. And yeah, it was cool. We just kind of like hung out and we made him play Wheel of Fortune on the PlayStation with us.
That's
And it was
that's
great.
really, really nice. No, that's lovely.
Yeah, it was really great.
That's so lovely. I love him. He's such a good boy.
He is such a good boy. God, I'm such a lucky mummy. I'm such
You are. You are.
Okay, so should we just kind of jump into it? I think we waited long enough. Let's just kind of.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, totally. So do you want to start it off?
Yeah. So I really want to talk about this. I really want to talk about this counter protest that's scheduled for
Okay.
February 20th. Obviously, we've been sharing information. If you've been keeping track of our stories, of our Instagram stories, we've been sharing information about a counter protest that
We
is
also shared two posts, sorry,
and two posts, yeah,
today. Yeah.
about a counter protest that is scheduled for February 20th. There's going to be a white supremacist rally, and they're like anti-maskers, white supremacists that are wanting to storm the legislature. They are threatening violence and hoping to have some sort of hoping to create something similar to the insurrection that we saw on Capitol Hill. So deeply concerning. The fact that they were even granted a permit to organize is astounding to me. Thank you again for nothing, Don Iveson. City office of the mayor, I guess. Whatever.
Him.
But
Him. It's
just
him, Tanya. It's
what
like me.
yeah,
Eh.
just awful. So anyway, so when I first heard about this counter protest, I thought, okay, fantastic. Like this, I am fully on board. As a light skinned Latina, I feel like it is my duty to show up, and I still stand by that. I really do think that it is my duty. We had heard local activists talking or asking darker skinned POC
And queer people.
and queer people and any sort of anybody who was like really visibly a minority to stay home if they could, because of course there were promises of violence, and this is a direct attack on marginalized people here in our city. And there were people coming from across the province. I mean, it's this really big event, and so of course I was like, yeah, we need to show up in numbers. And my position has since changed a little bit. I am still in support of activism to fight this kind of bigotry and racism and white nationalism. I still think it's super important. But we've been hearing from local activists here in the city and community members about some of the risks involved. And there's some pretty fair concerns. You don't have to dig very hard to find out who is saying what or what they're talking about. But there were some really valid concerns that were raised about vulnerable community members that live in the downtown core. Obviously, we're going to see an influx of people heading into the downtown core for this racist protest in the first place. Hopefully it's too cold and it gets canceled. But the problem is that when the rest of us start showing up, we're just adding to those numbers. And one of the issues is that it creates the possibility to become a super spreader event. And given the fact that there are a couple of new strains of COVID-19, it's occurred to a number of people well before it even crossed my mind, overzealous Tanya that was like, down with racism, down with fascism. It occurred to people that this was maybe a terrible idea, especially because we have a large concentration of houseless people living in the downtown core who are not going to have anywhere to go when we do get this influx of people. And that's a concern. And it's something that the organizers say that they have considered. I don't see any way around it. I don't see how, and I'm sure that they are taking certain measures. I just am not convinced that you can take sufficient measures to really prevent the spread of COVID-19, particularly to people who would have nowhere to go. So I am not telling people that you shouldn't go. I really want to support this event because I think that showing up is important. But I also have to value the safety of community members who are going to be in a really, really vulnerable position on the 20th. Mars, what do you think?
Well, I agree with you, to be honest. As you know, from the very beginning, I was kind of I was not really in favor of going just because I am a lot darker. And like you see me and you can immediately tell that I am a person of color. So for me, it was always something that I knew that I wasn't going to go to. But I support you, and I support anybody that wants to go. But it's, as you said, there is a lot to be said, especially with COVID. So one of the things that we shared today was actually created by the Degenerates YEG, where they actually talk about the safety guidelines behind protesting during a time of pandemic. So it's one of those things where obviously common sense prevails. If you feel sick, you shouldn't be leaving your house in the first place. But especially don't go out in public where you will be exposed with other people. And the thing with this particular protest that makes me pause is that it started out as something that I interpreted as like a peaceful, and not that it's no longer peaceful, but the peaceful dance party element of it does make me pause a bit, just because I feel that that encourages more mingling,
Yeah,
which is fine, but not when we're in a pandemic.
in the middle of it.
So yeah, so for me, like, I think it is important that we talk about anti-racism, and that, you know, I think that that's all it comes back down to, is that we really do, like you said last week, or not last week, in the video that we shared the day that of the Capitol, the attack on Capitol Hill, that it is really our responsibility to start nipping racist ideas and racist ideologies at at the source. Yes, your grandma's cute, she's 90, it does not matter.
I
She
don't give
needs
a
to
fuck how cute my grandma
yeah,
is.
she needs to stop being racist. I don't care if like your dad said something, you know, really offhanded, and your niece now says really gross things. Your baby niece, you know, now has like a really, pardon the pun, colored view of people of color. But like, I don't know, like it just came out and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go with it. But that's the thing. It's as somebody who has always been struggling to educate those I love to not be racist and to really not say things that could be interpreted as like a racist thing, it shouldn't really fall on me. And I know you've always been working on against that as well in your life. But you know, it's not on people of color anymore. We've been fucking fighting for this battle since we were born. I have been aware of my color, which is not a bad thing, since I was a little girl. I've had friends tell me, well, you know, I don't really see in color. And I know they mean it as a good thing. But as I said to them when they first made this comment to me, I was like, yeah, but you, by not seeing my color, are completely dismissing an entire part of my identity and how I view myself. So it's important that we stop being afraid of acknowledging our differences and actually, you know, feel emboldened enough to say, this racist thought is not good, you know, instead of encouraging people of color to just, you know, turn the other cheek, because we can be so nice and accommodating, but it's no longer our responsibility. It's never been our responsibility, but not in the year 2021, when there has been so much rise in, and you know, fascism and racism has never gone away. I think people of color have always known that it's been, you know, sticking around, but now it's so out in the open because of disgusting politicians coming into power. And it's not just Donald Trump, like Stephen Harper. I'm sorry, people like to fucking idolize this asshole, but what did he say that made a lot of Canadians, even like liberal Canadians, go whoa when he referred to, you know, old stock Canadians? Like, that is very coded racist language. And the fact that white Canadians actually saw, oh, you like, you know, like, he shouldn't have said that. Yeah, he shouldn't have said that, you know. So anyway,
Yeah,
that's my take on it.
you know, the thing is that, you know, I feel like we culturally are really like, oh, but we don't want to upset anybody. And it's like, okay, but who are we coddling here, and who are we
Mm-hmm.
protecting when we take that kind of a stance? You know, to go back to your point about um to go back to your point about you know, you being tired, you know, I totally agree with that. By the way, if anybody has any comments or thoughts, feel free to share them with us. We want to hear what you guys are thinking about this as well. You know, when it comes down to you know, being tired. It's so funny because you and I have been having these discussions about colorism. And I remember being so exhausted because you're right, I have been having these conversations for a really, really long time. And, you know, I feel like it is really, really exhausting. So for anybody who doesn't know, my ex-husband was a cattle rancher. We lived out in rural Alberta. I am, you know, very visibly ethnic, right? I'm Latina, but I have the luxury of racial ambiguity, right, by virtue of my light skin. So, you know, there's that. But, you know, you move out to rural Alberta where, you know, people are so white they're red. And it's you stand out and people want you to know how different you are. And that was a challenge. So, you know, one of the things that I found was that silencing myself became exhausting, and trying to educate people in a way that was considered palatable or polite became exhausting. And it's a burden that POC often have to carry. in order to avoid ruffling too many feathers, the last thing you want to do is ostracize yourself from white people, because that's where the opportunities are. So you learn to play, within these, within the confines of palatability, whatever that means,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was really, really exhausted. And I was really like, no, Google is free. You can handle this on your own. No, white people, you need to step up. The problem is that by and large, white people don't, right? And as much as we get tired of doing this, the fact is that the work doesn't stop. And so for someone like me, my partner's in the back, he just picked up dinner. You know, so for someone like me who, is really light skinned, and who, by virtue of that light skin and by virtue of my palatability, the way that I speak, the way that I carry myself, which is, pretty non-offensive, right, to, the standard of whiteness, right? I mean, I'm about as palatable as a woman of my complexion and my ethnic background, I would say, can be. I have mastered dominant language. I'm fluent in both official languages. I'm really, it really is my job. It really is my job. If I'm looking at my skin tone on the color wheel, it is not a stretch to say that many white women are going to be buying the same shade of foundation as a woman who looks like me. And there is a certain amount of right? And there's a certain amount of responsibility that comes with that. And, when we talk about representation within Latinidad, Latinas who we see represented on TV all look like me, right? Mm-hmm. We don't see enough Latinas with Indigenous features, not unless it's some sort of like a political statement that someone is making, right? And there's always a fad, right? And so I feel a certain burden of responsibility because of that. I mean, it is exhausting. And there are moments when I'm like, fuck it, I just want to throw in the towel. But the fact of the matter is that for people of my complexion, it doesn't matter what your racial denomination, if we are not stepping up to the plate, if we don't continue to step up to the plate, even when it's exhausting and even when it's hard, the fact is that we are leaving it to white people to do the right thing. And by and large, that tactic has failed us over and over and over again, because to expect white people to do the heavy lifting is to suggest that white society, white culture, the old stock
white supremacist culture,
white supremacy has
capitalism, everything, the foundation on which our society is built, the patriarchy and white supremacy, and all of them are connected. They're all in bed together.
Yeah, but it's, if we're leaving it for them, then we're leaving it for white supremacist culture. We're trying to appeal to their conscience, and by and large, they do not have one. So,
and why is that, Tanya?
The moment we stop pandering to palatability, right? The moment we step out of line, that's the moment that we wind up on our own, and we wind up being attacked on both sides, right? By people who would rather that we conformed, right? People from our own groups who are like, but like, we're not ready.
You're making us look bad.
Yeah, you're making us look bad. And I get that too, right? The struggle is real. We all have to play by these rules if we're going to get ahead, because unfortunately, in this moment in time, in this moment in history, we don't live in a time where we can just ignore these arbitrary rules of respectability, right? Yeah. So we have to play to them. But we also have to be willing to step up and do the work. So for me, this counter protest was really important. This was like, oh, this is my job. And so it's really hard for me. I'm not going to tell Black people how you should protest. I'm not going to tell Indigenous people how they should protest. That's not my lane. All I am doing is pointing out, as many activists in the city have pointed out, and they're not just white activists who pointed this out. We are talking about Black activists. We are talking about Indigenous activists who have pointed this out, who for one reason or another, don't feel comfortable getting more vocal about it. But who have said it on their social media platforms. They're just not like yelling it, through a megaphone. We're living in a pandemic, and we could be putting people's lives at risk. So I am only cautioning that if you can stay home, if you can find it in yourself to stay home and avoid a counter-protest dance party, it might be wise to do that. And if anybody wants to know what local activists are saying, have a look. There are groups that have done major groundwork, particularly in the areas of the houseless population, servicing houseless people in our community, poverty reduction, and you know, uh, other local figures that are talking about staying home and the importance of it. And I feel like it would be irresponsible of me to just blindly promote this event without cautioning that. I myself will likely not go. I'm not going to
Mhm.
go. And I hate to say that because it makes me feel like I'm not supporting my community. On the other hand, I can't think of a better way to support my community, um, particularly our most vulnerable, than to stay
Mhm.
home for their benefit.
For
Um,
sure. Yeah.
so, I mean, those are my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I think it's important to like go back to what you were saying about how it is really a shame that we cannot, or you didn't say that, but I think it's a shame that we can't rely on, allies anymore, really, or we've never really been able to. Like you look at things that Martin Luther King would say about the white moderate, right? You look at things, yeah, I know. You look at things that, other activists have said about liberalism. And that's the thing. When you're liberal, you're not really set in one place or the other. So for you, you want to be, like you said, palatable. You want to engage with people in like a way that they will accept you. But the thing is, when you are, I guess, catering to one specific audience, then you're completely just disregarding an entire population. And it's the population that's affected the most, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about these things, that's why, like, I know we've talked about this other times, and we've posted things from them as well, but I do believe that anti-racism education is something that should be introduced, and not just at like the elementary and kindergarten level. I think it's something that we should actually start requiring, people to do, like in in no matter where they're going. Like it should be something like a workshop that people have to take when they work in business, or something that people can actually do, because it is really damaging psychologically when you are constantly having to validate your experience or validate your existence as a person of color. And I think that that's what it comes down to for me, is that exhaustion comes down to that, where I'm like, I just don't want to fight it anymore. And I'll admit that, for me, like having friends of color is kind of like, it's a nice little cocoon for me, because like I feel like they understand me. And like it's also another reason why, I tend to go for men of color, because they understand me in a way that most white guys can't. And that's fine, like I don't think that that's like a bad preference or whatever, but I do feel more seen, if that makes sense. But yeah.
Totally. And it's so funny because that experience in and of itself is so valuable, right? Just to feel like you don't have to explain yourself. You have this like unspoken understanding of what you're going through, or you can say this happened to me, and you don't have to explain why it was racist because
No,
your friends
he gets
know.
it. Yeah.
And to go back to your point about anti-racist education and the value in that, um, you know, I still hear that comment from Stephen Harper. You reminded me of it
Oh,
about
I'm
old stock
sorry.
Canadians, and it just
Oh, I will never forget. Like that sealed his
I
coffin for
forgot
me. Like
about
I'm
that
like, you know
until you
what?
brought
Like
it up.
I never liked you, but now like I legitimately hate you.
I
Like
know,
fuck off, buddy.
and the thing is, I think about old stock Canadians, and like you said, it is coded language, but
Mm.
we have really important historical figures who were black and Indian and Muslim, and and granted, Muslim is not an ethnicity, but we have there are a range of what old stock Canadians actually are. And
Hello, the Chinese, like who worked on the railroads. Like hello, the Japanese. Like like and it's very surprising to me how, like, I think the first time I really learned much about racism, and not racism, sorry, slavery in Canada, was actually when I lived in Montreal. And I remember I worked promotion, like marketing, for a museum there, and they were doing Passion et Scandale. And it was one of the stories that they were talking about was the passions and scandals of old Montreal. And one of them talked about that that woman who burnt down Montreal, and I can't remember her name, but I know that the AB anti-racism people have done a presentation on her. Like they did a thing, Angelique, I think. I will look this up. But yes, like it's something that you, and she was a slave, and like she tried to run away, and she ended up burning down Montreal, and good for her. Sorry, I know that's incendiary, but good for her.
No,
You know,
and
like
that's and all of that is fair. And but it's also really important to remember. So I mean, we talk about anti-racism history, and Black history is Canadian history. There are no two ways about it, right? Indigenous history obviously is Canadian history, and a truthful telling of it is imperative if we're going to have honest discussions about where to move forward from here. The idea of reconciliation at this point is a joke because we're not talking about it honestly. And there's nothing worse. There's no bigger slap in the face, in my opinion, to sit there and have to sit through a land acknowledgement without any sort of call to action. And we're still seeing people do that, despite the fact that, I mean, elders and Indigenous community members have made it very clear that it's not enough just to say, oh, we want to acknowledge that we're in Treaty 6 territory. And it's like, and ike, ike,
I've actually been, oh, sorry.
No. So I think, so just to finish my point about anti-racism history, the value in that also is acknowledging the contributions that we've been making, that people of color have been making in this country, and we've been here. Our stories are dignified, and they're brave, and they are rooted in yes, sometimes our stories are written in tragedy and in displacement, but our stories are also written in a deep love of this country and this land and our people, and we deserve to have that acknowledged. Those stories they deserve to be told, and they deserve to be told honestly and fully. And the stories of Indigenous people in this country deserve to be told first and foremost, because we can't move forward until we do that. So I love that. I think for anybody who's curious, we've been talking about Indigenous history Indigenous history. Well, we've been talking about anti-racism history as part of Alberta's curriculum for quite some time. We are huge supporters of that. If you haven't already checked them out, anti-racism edu.
It's AB Anti-Racism Edu.
There you go.
Yeah, no, I remembered her name. So it was Marie-Joseph Angélique. So I remembered the Angélique, but I was like, what is the rest of her name?
You're so cute.
Like, well, I knew that it was something because like I had to, like, I made promotional stuff for them back in the day. Really, really like amateur. But that was like my first marketing job. So it would be a shame if I didn't remember anything.
Whatever.
But yeah, so it's one of those things that I don't think that many Canadians or maybe I'm making an assumption, but I don't think many Canadians outside of Montreal really know about Marie-Joseph Angélique, if that's her name. Fuck. Turned it off already. This is why I should be. Oh yeah, Marie-Joseph Angélique. Yeah. So it's one of those things that it really is disheartening, especially like when you consider that Canadians are very proud of like the contributions that we did to both world wars without really, at least to my brown eyes, literally like brown eyes, we don't really acknowledge like the Indigenous people or the Sikhs or the Chinese people or the Black soldiers that actually fought in those wars. And that's something that I really appreciate about the AB, the Alberta Anti-Racism Education people, because they have really opened my eyes to a lot of historical figures that I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. That's really fascinating. So now with, because obviously we're also in Black History Month, which I like, obviously we should always celebrate Black history because duh. It's like the same with Hispanic Heritage Month. I think it's in May in the States, and my niece, because I have families. I don't know.
I thought Hispanic Heritage Month is like half of October and half of November or something like that. I don't know. All I know is that our Heritage Month is the only month that is forced to cross a border. So there you have it.
Yeah. But it's really funny because my niece will always say that, and she's like, they obviously don't live with my mom. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Like that's the thing. Like, I mean, they give these token holidays to people of color just to keep us happy for a bit, but it's like, no.
Well, the part that really gets me, to go back to this fucking protest on the 20th, like, blow me, is that we have literally shed blood for this country. And we our stories are not being told. The stories of our sacrifices and our deep love of this country they're not being acknowledged. And the fact that we have to explicitly ask for anti-racism education to be included as a part of Alberta's curriculum is really telling about uh, what this province's priorities are, and you know whose history we're telling. But Indigenous history is Alberta's history. Black history is Alberta's history. You know, Muslim history is Alberta's history. The first mosque, I believe, in Canada was built here in Alberta.
I think you're right. Yeah, I remember reading that. Yeah.
The Al Rashid Mosque. So, and that's something to be proud of. That's something to celebrate. And I'm really proud of that. You know, and that doesn't mean that I'm not proud to learn about the accomplishments that we made in Canada. I'm proud when I learn about the sacrifices that our soldiers made during World War II because we believed in the cause. But I am equally proud of the fact that John Ware was a Black cowboy, was a former slave, you know, who came to Alberta and brought with him the tradition you know, that he learned from vaqueros in Mexico. Man, that's something to be proud of. That's something to celebrate, and we're not talking about it. You know, no. And there are so many other prominent figures in this province and in this country. So it really is a shame. Kanish says should be 24/7, 365. I agree, and we should all be incensed by the fact that this is something that we have to actually fight for in the legislature. The fact that people don't hear this and say, oh, that seems like a good idea, maybe we should tell a comprehensive history about our country. The fact that it's not like automatic, that we have to be like, here's the case that we've made for it, is like a huge slap in the face to every hardworking Albertan who happens to be non-white, because our sacrifices matter. Our stories matter.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's that. That like long ass tangent that we went on.
Well, no, it was part of our agenda.
Was it? Oh, yeah. I don't know. I'm looking at the agenda. I forgot.
That's why I was like, anti-racist.
You're like, anti- and I'm like,
Black history. So I was like, anyway.
You're like following the agenda. I'm just like going off on these tangents. Like,
but no, you're perfect. No, because like I got us there, and then you'd go with it. So I was like, that's perfect. No, this is good. This is good. We're talking about the things. But yeah, no, I think that definitely, like, you're right. Like, it should be, like, as Kanisha said, it should be 24/7. And like that's the thing that I find the most disheartening is that it's hard to even convince people to fill that form out, like, at least in my opinion. I posted the link for the AB anti-racism education thing. I don't know how many times I've sent it to so many people, and like, I'll be like, hey, did you sign that thing? It's like, oh yeah, I'll sign it later. And I'm like, it's not even, it doesn't, you know, but sorry, I was going to get into a bad thing anyway.
We're not going to do that.
No, we're not going to do that today. It's not therapy. It's not therapy.
Not therapy. It's not therapy. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But for anybody on the subject of filling out forms, for anybody who hasn't had a chance to take a look, there is a link to a budget consultation survey / questionnaire that's being shared. If you are able, we are pushing for a UBI. There is a question that is part of the questionnaire that asks for other ways. It's an open-ended question that asks for other ways that the federal government can support people once we come out of COVID for like long-term strategies and things that they can implement. And there is a huge push for UBI. So if you haven't had a chance to fill it out, make sure that you do that. I filled it out. It took me maybe 3 minutes to fill it out, maybe. So make sure that you go ahead and do that. The link is in our bio, so make sure that you check it out. Should we go back to our point about this protest? If you haven't had a chance to look at our posts, we have shared safe protesting tips. Again, we are not encouraging people to go. We need to make sure that people are staying home. We need to avoid increasing the workload that doctors and nurses are facing in a hospital right now, because the rise in COVID-19 cases, particularly with these new strands, is something that we should all be concerned about. However, if you are going to go, if we cannot convince you to stay home, at the very least, make sure that you are protesting safely. So there are 2 posts that went up today. Thank you, Marcella, for sharing those. One of them, which was the most recent one, which was created by the Degenerates here in Edmonton. Big shout out to them. Thank you so much for creating that. And then the other one that was shared by the community YYC with specific pointers about this, because we do expect that this anti-mask white supremacist rally.
Well, because they want
protest.
to mimic what happened in Charlotte, whatever. What was it? Where like they ran over that poor girl. Where was
Oh,
it?
God, yeah.
So many things happen, which
And
is horrible because you would think that we would remember these things. But like the thing is, it happens so frequently. And like I know my brain is an encyclopedia for some things, but it's not for horrible, you know, violence against people of color. And like I know that that sounds flippant, and I don't mean it to sound flippant, but it's just it's so frustrating that the news cycle, like just on the first, like there was a 9-year-old in the States that was like I don't know if you read about that, with
yes,
pepper
she was
spray.
pepper spray.
Yeah, and
Madison,
they're like, grow up, and she's like, I like stop acting like a child.
like a
And she's like,
child.
I am a child.
I'm fucking 9. I must
I
say, you
know.
know what? I
Yeah.
made the mistake of watching the video.
Oh no, don't ever do
No,
that.
no, you know
No.
what it was? They showed it on the news. They showed it on
Oh
the
fuck.
news, and I watched part of it. Madse, and for a second, the way that she was crying, I want my dad. Madse, my heart stopped.
Of
My
course
heart
it
stopped.
did. Yeah.
Honestly,
But see, that's the thing that really gets to me. It's like the George Floyd stuff. Like news, my parents watch Univision, right? Latino parents, that's all they watch, except for CNN at night.
I
But
love your
for them,
parents.
Univision is on our stupid TV all the time. And the thing for me is that like they'll be watching it and they'll be talking about the horrible situation or the horrible murder of like George Floyd. And Univision will just air that. And I'm like, why? Like, because I'm really happy to say that I've actually learned not to go looking for those clips. And I know that we have made it a practice not to share those clips because it's just why re-traumatize people. And I think that that's the thing that always gets to me is that as you know, as a person of color, I cannot identify with that pain. Nevertheless, it still triggers a fear and like a sadness, a sorrow that I think most people who have at least been victims of racism can kind of like at least I like understand to a degree. And like that's I don't mean that to be flippant or to be dismissive of like the pain that actual Black Canadians and Americans feel, but it's horrible. And like the fact that we've made such a huge profit off of sharing those images and those videos, it's so callous. And the thing that really gets under my skin is the fact that it is mostly people of color, like the videos of people of color that we share. That poor little boy, the Syrian refugee who died, like that image went all over the world. The little girl who and her father who died crossing the Rio Grande in the States, they published those pictures. But then, you know, if this kind of tragedy, and God forbid it happens to a white child, they give those people, and I'm sorry to say those people, but they give them the respect of actually mourning their family and in a dignified way. And it's one of those things that you don't really see it unless like you are a person in that group, I think. But yeah, I'm tired. So anyway, I'm sorry that you saw that video because that
No, but
must have been
the thing with
fucking
that
crazy.
is the thing with that argument too is that it's really important to make clear, because unfortunately we do have to make it clear that the point here is not that we should be sharing everybody's trauma. The
No,
point here
no.
is that we should show Black and brown bodies the same respect that we show to
Don't
white.
show that shit.
Yeah,
that
don't
is the
show it.
point. Do not share that stuff.
It would
Like,
be
please
nice.
no.
It would be
Yeah.
nice if the grace that is extended to, and same with like, white perps, right? It would be nice if when um Black and Indigenous and POC Latinos are victimized, or when we are accused of a crime, if we were shown the same grace as our white counterparts. And that, I feel like there's a criticism out there that's like, oh, well, they just want to do to us what
No,
they
and
want.
that's
No,
not
no,
what
no,
we're
and that's
saying.
not it,
Yeah.
and that's not it. So I just
No,
feel
not
like
at
it's
all.
really important, unfortunately, for us to have to clarify in this moment
Mhm.
that is the
That's
point.
not what we're advocating, or that's not what I'm advocating. What I'm
No.
advocating is give them the same dignity, the same respect, the same understanding and empathy that they deserve. Like they're humans, and I think that that's like the thing that jars me the most whenever like these kinds of situations happen, where and like that other gentleman, like anyway, I don't want to get off tangent, but yes, I'm sorry that you saw that horrible video, because that, you know,
Yeah.
the start of Black History Month, and that was, you know, like another trauma, like another traumatic experience for like the African American population in the US. Like yeah.
9-year-old girl. God, 9 years old. And
Mm.
yeah, no, that really broke my heart. That really broke my heart.
I
Yeah,
know.
that really,
I
especially
know.
like as a mom, I got to tell you, and it's so easy for me to say this. If somebody were to put their hands on my kid, I would lose my shit,
Oh, I get that.
you
Yeah, for
know?
sure.
But
Yeah.
like the helplessness, and I
Mhm.
don't know what the details were, why the cops were called in the first place, but like the helplessness that Black mothers must feel when their children are abused, when their children are murdered, the helplessness that you must feel. They, you know, America, the United States and Canada, you know, they don't cry for Black and brown bodies the way that they cry for white victims, and that's the most heartbreaking part. um and it's so that video, I found it really, really jarring. What a shitty way to start Black History Month. What a
I
shitty way to
know.
start
I
it. You
know.
know, one of the things that
I
I'm seeing a
know.
lot of on the subject of Black History Month is a lot of like, you know, these like empty like MLK quotes, and like from people who have clearly never read any of Dr. King's work, who've never read any of his speeches, who've, you know, who want to like misconstrue it and be like, no, he was a pacifist, me. You know, our understanding of Dr. King, if you read it, it will evolve. And he was much more complex than you know, just this feel good pacifist that existed to you know, placate the white conscience. So it hey, so I
Sorry, I'm not seeing any of these comments, so I'm always like,
you're not.
no, I don't know why. I was seeing them last time, so I was like, why can't I see anyone? I should say hi to people. I'm like,
I look crazy. I'm like just like
no, no, I know you're talking to them, but I'm like, I don't know who she's talking to. It's so sad. Just like,
Está loca que no me para de saludar. She's already said hi like 3 times.
hi, Tanya. God. Anyway, sorry, we're making a really good point about Dr. King,
Yeah.
and how people's like opinions would change if they actually read his work. Yeah, for sure.
So all I'm getting at is Black History Month. Make sure that if you want to celebrate Black History Month, actually read the works of Black activists. Make sure that you are supporting Black businesses, and we should be doing this every day, all year long. This should not be limited to Black History Month. But
sorry, when you said that, I'm just like, fuck, like it's so stupid, but a lot of people think this way, and it's like, no.
actually,
It's
though,
fascinating. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of like when you get those people that are like they only care about Mexicans on Cinco de Mayo. Yeah.
Which Mexicans don't even celebrate.
Most Mexican cities celebrate. And
yeah, like I remember, like I've asked like my friends from Mexico, like I always ask them, like whenever it's Cinco de Mayo, I'm like, oh, do you eat? And they're like, no, like it's not a thing in Mexico. It's only a thing in the US. Like, and only like, you know, and it's one of those things where I'm like, it's interesting. Like Americans,
and you
they're
know,
fascinating.
whenever I get invited to shit for Cinco de Mayo, they're always like, hey, are you gonna come out for Cinco de Mayo? Should we go get our drink on? It makes me want to burn the fucking city to the ground. I'm like,
like Marie-Joseph
Angelique. Yeah. Like Marie-Joseph Angelique. Thank you. No, following her footsteps.
Do it.
I'm like, dude, like my parents are from El Salvador. Can you not? Like,
it's not the same country.
It's not the same. I hate people so much. People are horrible.
Yeah, no. Cinco de Drinko. Shut up. Sorry. I know. People are well-meaning, though.
Your heart.
People are well-meaning. They're well-meaning, yeah.
It's so gross, though. Ugh. And I don't want to like hand out like participation prizes for people who are like, I didn't mean anything by it. Me, I'm a big diaper baby. Like,
and see, that's another thing that I think anti-racism education should teach, is how to be humble when people correct you. If somebody takes the time to actually sit you down because they care about you and say, what you said, what you did is racist, blah, blah, blah. You shouldn't be, well, you're being too sensitive. You know, I didn't mean it that way. No.
No.
Like,
Or
like,
why are you attacking me? I'm just trying to celebrate your culture. Why are you
yeah,
attacking me? Like, ugh. This is
yeah,
what they sound like, by the way, in our minds. This is
yeah,
everybody who acts like an idiot sounds like this in my mind.
yeah,
But
yeah.
no,
I hate to
it's,
say it,
oh,
yeah.
I hate it. I just can't with
I
people
know.
anymore.
What is it
Um,
that the kids on the TikTok say? I hate it here.
I hate it. Is that,
That's
I
what
don't
they
know.
always
I
say,
don't
like,
spend
I
enough
hate
time on
it here.
TikTok. I don't
Sorry?
spend enough time on TikTok. I don't spend enough time on
Oh
TikTok.
God. No, it's like my thing now. It's like late night. I'm like scroll, scroll, scroll. Yeah. But they're like they tell scary stories too. There's like part of TikTok that tells scary stories. So that's like where usually I like hang out because it's like, ooh,
So
there's a
I
thing.
low key, I hate it here.
Yeah. See?
Girl Mark.
Who
Like,
said that?
Girl Mark. Oh yeah,
I
you
don't
can't
know who
see.
said it. Sorry?
You can't see. I have to read these
No, I
comments.
don't.
Mr. Omar,
Mr. Omar,
he just
Hazy.
commented, I hate it here.
Yeah, see? I hate it here.
Yeah, no, it's I follow like 2 accounts and one of them is the Salvadoran one. I'm gonna
And
send it to
me.
you. And you, I do follow you. I think I follow like 2 accounts and I think you're one of them.
Yeah, I know, where I just post like really, really sad things about my cat. So it's fine. It's fine. I'm there just to give compliments and look at all the other people doing this. Anyway, now we're way off topic.
Yeah, we're way off topic. And actually, okay, so I gotta wrap this up and I hope we're
Yeah.
at dinner and we're gonna sit down to eat. I am so hungry, bless you. He just sneezed. We're gonna wrap this up. So to quickly recap, anti-racism protest on February 20th. If you are going to go, and I'm not recommending that you do, we need to make sure that we nip the spread of COVID-19. Make sure that you're protesting safely. If you want some information, we have posted resources on our Instagram page. As always, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. We love you. Marce, I love you with all my heart.
Kisses to Tanya and everyone else that I didn't see. All right. Bye, friend.
Thanks, guys. Bye.